am very appreciative for one. Seriously, I feel like I could write a book saying everything I've learned about history that I need to know, I learned from Oliver Stone. And that shouldn't be the case. Well, and probably some Ken Burns. There's definitely been some like other documentary people that I have watched, but we shouldn't have to be reprogrammed.
Well, Ken Burns' view of Vietnam is wrong, I think, and he takes the point of view that we're the good guys there, and we intended to do good, and he glosses over all the evil we did.
This is why he's allowed on PBS.
When you have a madman like Curtis LeMay, chief of staff of the Air Force under Kennedy, if you remember, who bombed the shit out of Germany and who bombed the shit out of Japan. He wiped out Japan. I mean, and then of course the atomic bombs, but he didn't do that. But he was the bombing lead on Japan. And then he did the same thing in Korea. People didn't even think about it. Korea was wiped out, the North and the South. There was a civilian population. There was no differentiation between civilian and military. It was the most brutal campaign. And it continued into Vietnam. He wasn't there, he died, but the same mentality operated. Bombing was okay because you're not down on the ground seeing the results. So you drop bombs. John McCain, I could not stand that man when I'm sorry, many people think he's a great senator.
No, not here.
He bombed the shit out of, and he had no regrets. No regrets.
No, these are like, to me, I think of most of these people as just war criminals, and we just have no recourse because we're that powerful. So there's no recourse. They could just do whatever they want. I think pretty much most people in the past 3 administrations should be incarcerated. So, but we don't really get to that.
The General Petraeus is a good example. It's funny because he missed the Vietnam War, but he comes up with his whole theory, the counterinsurgency theory for Iraq, where he's going to fight the war successfully in Iraq. So he uses basically the same thinking of the Viet Cong and NVA. And he goes about it, and it's a disaster in Iraq. It's a disaster. We cannot organize or manage a war anymore. We do not have that ability. We lost that ability because we're filled with hyperinflation. We're filled with lies. We don't tell ourselves the truth. The architects for fundamental architecture of our society, it needs to be trimmed and made economical again. And I don't see that happening, even close to it. So talk about climate change. I mean, we're spending a fortune on this thing. And I don't think we're going to get the same results that we'd like to get because we're spending so much money, we think we're solving it. Maybe it's got to be solved by thinking and doing less and using our brains, using our technology with energy, and using our new minds that are looking for solutions, including nuclear energy. It's very important that we understand how to use energy and what all these windmills are. We can build all the windmills we want. Whether that's going to solve it is a big issue. I don't think so, because it takes a lot of land, and I think solar has the same problem. Well, I'm all for expanding them, but I do think there's a limit to which we can go.
Yeah, we talk about that. And I think that humans believe that we could just switch over from, fossil fuels and just keep living how we're living. And the reality is that we can't do that because there are a lot of things in the way we live that are completely dependent on fossil fuels. And instead of changing the way we live, we think we could just sort of put a Band-Aid on that and try to get that power from using renewable energy. And I just don't think, I think there's going to be major compromises that are going to have to be made.
You made a great point.
Well, we have to keep working on the research with these new energies, because there are ways to get away from oil to a certain degree, and cars, for example, and airplanes. These things can be rejuggled. Yeah, there's a lot of good new work being done. I was just up at the Idaho National Laboratory, and I saw great work being done.
I want to go to Idaho.
No, you definitely made a great point about the fact that nuclear is the transitional energy.
We've said that before.
In terms of the base of, if you want to get away from coal and natural gas.
Actually, young people like you have been finding that out. What's interesting is that the environmental movement, when you study it in detail, a lot of it was supported by the oil companies. Rockefeller was the first one in 1957 to see the way and he put money into Greenpeace and things like that. Oh, I forget the first one was called, but they put money there because they did everything possible to block nuclear energy. They knew that was a solution that they couldn't outcompete. So they did work, and the environmental groups heard it quite a bit. But some environmental groups have come around now to see. But the young people, the difference is when you talk to a young person, they're not scared of nuclear because they say the end of climate, the end of Earth is far more concerning to them than nuclear war.
Yeah,
that's the truth.
And their perspective is very on point. We work with a lot of youth down here, and a lot of them are also vegan. Like for them,
yes, that's a big thing
change our
too.
Diet and things that are really proactive about what we need to do in order to fight this. But the truth of the matter is, and maybe you caught this the other day, this was absolutely fantastic. They're doing the dog and pony show at COP26 at the climate summit. Why Nancy Pelosi and Frank Pallone are there, doing their little speeches about how, we're gonna solve all of the problems now because Trump is not in the White House anymore. Yet you guys are still spending $1 trillion on the military, and they are the biggest purveyors of environmental disaster as anybody. And so hats off to Abby Martin of the Empire Files, who called her out the other day. Spectacularly done. And of course, she totally didn't see it coming. So Pelosi was total deer in headlights. And I'm assuming that you were able to catch that. I mean,
no, I haven't, but I heard about it.
Oh, it was amazing. And to me, that's everything.
Yeah. Abby's doing a great series apparently on the Defense Department's.
She's one of the few journalists we have left. She's one of the few that people can watch. As we wrap up, are you okay? No, he's coughing.
I'm okay.
Okay. So somebody had a question, and I know you said it earlier. You were talking about the JFK Revisited and that it's going to be on Showtime, right? That's where it's starting on Showtime.
It's starting, yeah.
Okay. And then hopefully after that, it'll end up back on Netflix.
Well,
it'll go on Netflix.
That one I don't know. I can't tell you because that is a controversial subject. Netflix tends to be scared of controversy. So, I mean, it will get out through Amazon, maybe at least as a commercial release. I can't guarantee any platform anymore. Showtime is stretching to do this, and they've done it. We'll see what they do. The app and all that, but we will have a deal by January for a general release. I guarantee.
But what we're talking about, people, is Oliver's project, JFK Revisited. It's an expanded look and an updated look at JFK, and you said it was 4 hours. There's a 4 hour. There's a 2 hour version.
Coming out also, 2 hour and a 4 hour.
Okay.
4 hours buffs, people who care to really get in. 2 hours to familiar.
That's like us. We're like. That's like us. I just get into these things and then I just start going down and then I have epiphanies. My only question for you is the one place where you did not update me, where I had to deprogram myself, was on Israel, Palestine.
Yeah.
That's something that, and as a Jew in South Florida, has been very hard to deprogram, growing up with post-Holocaust grandparents and this whole very fear-based, got to protect Israel, got to have Israel, everything about Israel. And to speak against that as a Jewish person has not been easy. And that is, I think, the only real controversial thing I did not get from you.
Well, as I'm in the hot water enough, I got a lot of shit back in 2004. I did a documentary called Persona Non Grata. And it was about I went to Palestine and Jerusalem, and I went to the other side. I went to the Arabic side, and I was in Ramallah when the Israelis came in, and we got out by the hair of our teeth because of the Canadians got us out. Our documentary crew. It was quite an exciting time, but I was called all kinds of names when I spoke out for Palestinian rights, and next thing I knew, I was reviled in the Western press, and there was a lot of heat. That happens a lot. So the people are doing that all the time, but you forget about it. But essentially, it burned my tail off, and I'm very sensitive about that.
Did you were called anti-Semitic? Is that it? Were you anti-Semitic? Okay.
Of course.
Okay. So, hi, I'm a self-loathing Jew.
I am too. No, my father was Jewish. My mother is Catholic. So
it's even harder. And the Zionism thing is big. I mean, that whole generation. It was very, very big. Like what they were taught.
Well, you know what? There's an interesting story on JFK that you may not know, which we have in the 4-hour version, not in the 2-hour version. JFK was very concerned about David Ben-Gurion, and Ben-Gurion getting the bomb was a big deal back in the 60s. And guess what happened? JFK was resolutely against them working on the bomb, and he was about to put a stop to it. He warned them, he did everything possible to stop it. He didn't want proliferation of the nuclear weapon, and he was right. And guess what? At the moment he died, of course, Lyndon Johnson, who reversed every policy he made except on civil rights, Johnson went ahead and closed his eyes. The Israelis continued to build the bomb in 68. I believe it was 68. At that reactor, they have Dimona. They finished the bomb. And Johnson never even told anybody. It's typical of a hypocrisy, but it's the American, the third rail. Don't go after Israel.
I always say that. I'm like, Israel is the third rail. The rail. That's the thing. I mean, it's always a problem. And especially in my district, it does not go over well. This is not going to.
No, I can see that. Do they allow you there? Or are you back for Yom Kippur or what?
I am a non-practicing, very secular. Really, I'm an atheist, and I was raised by hippie parents who grew up in very Orthodox Jewish household. So, I'm sort of a hybrid of those things.
So you have a sight for both sides.
I do. Well, I grew up with Orthodox Jewish grandparents. I know what that looks like. I know I've been to Israel. I have family that live in the old city. Basically, all they do is study Torah and breed, and that's basically it. So I'm very familiar with it, but I don't appreciate religion in general. That's just not, it's just, to me, it's just not my thing.
One of the last things I do want to mention, Mr. Stone, and I'm not sure how much you studied up on Jen, but she did run for Congress in 2020 against none other than Debbie Wasserman Schultz.
Wow, good for you. Good for you.
Very, very unique experience. But the thing that I really took away from the whole campaign and all the things that you learn is that of all the things that doesn't get talked about enough with Wasserman Schultz is just how deeply embedded in the military-industrial complex she is.
Oh yeah, huge.
I mean, she is as in with it that you don't become the head of the DNC for 6 years if you are not very, very friendly with the military-industrial complex. And so that is the side of her political career that, to me, never gets talked about enough and really needs to be highlighted more, not just with her, but with all representation in general. Because if there's one thing, as we talk about, that Capitol Hill unifies on, it is war and it is the military budget. They will agree 99 times out of 100, but that just goes to show you how much corporate special interest money in the military makes a difference when it comes to our policy in this country and frankly, all over the world.
And they couldn't even get us good rifles in Vietnam. The M16 was a terrible rifle. The Kalashnikov is still around, and people like the Kalashnikov. We can't get good rifles in those days in the U.S.
I would think, if anything, what we're really good at is weapons. In fact, I'm pretty sure that's our main export is weapons.
Not necessarily. The F-35 is a disaster. You've read all these years and years of problems with this plane. Not necessarily. The Russians are much better with weaponry because they build economically. Look at the Russian budget at $70 billion a year versus $1 trillion a year.
Right.
They're building weapons that work. Hypersonic missiles that came first. They're in other words, weapons do not have to cost money. I think what the cost is a lot of this, obviously our way of budgeting, but it's because of the lobbyists. It's because of the money goes into winning congressional approval for these budgets as opposed to actually building the weapon.
It's profit. It's all profit. I often say, let's say the Russians, if let's say our fear of them is founded when people say something about the Russians, I'm always like, what do you think they're going to do? What are they going to do? Are they going to come up on the shores in boats with guns? What are we concerned with? Their economy is the size of Spain's. I don't understand. What is the deal?
It's actually the biggest chimera we've ever. It's so grossly grossly exaggerated that one day we'll wake up and we'll say, what happened? Where'd all that money go? Where'd the country go?
I do think we're getting close to something like that. And now the question becomes, is there going to be a big enough anti-war movement in the United States that's going to allow for the reduction of the military machine? And the reason I think that that could potentially happen is because of how directly linked now military action is to climate disaster. And because there is such an amazing youth movement in this country that really fears the end of, the planet, or at least the potential where sustainable life on the planet is not going to be possible, at least for a significant part of the population. And so if enough youth really start to hone their skills in terms of how they want to go after this, if they go after the military industrial complex, there will be millions upon millions of people that will say, yeah, we're not having this anymore. And that will be reflective in electoral politics. You see what they're doing at Joe Manchin right now. If they get better and more efficient at it, they're going to really be able, we can really ride the back of this new generation that is basically saying, yeah, we're not doing this shit anymore.
Pete, from your lips to God's ears.